Hi, welcome back to my channel. With everything going on in the world right now, following George Floyd's death and, well, should I say murder, regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, I postponed my previous video from its usual schedule on Tuesday when it was all about the Blackout Tuesday, when we stopped our privilege and showcased all the resources we can share to support Black Lives and Black Lives movement. As a white person, as a privileged white person, I can't even begin to fathom everything that people of colour go through, and even me making this video is, what's the point? Who cares what I've read in May? Do you? It becomes very sad considering that I can make this video, not worry about going outside, and there are people who can't even start thinking that, oh, just by going outside they might not even return back. So I'll still make this video, I'll still tell you what I've read in May, but I will leave links in the pinned comment to help you educate yourself, to help you spread the word, talk to your families, talk to your friends, talk to anyone, everyone. Just spread the word. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. I just can't begin to even comprehend how can we live in the 21st century, in 2020, and someone's life is worth more than the other person. I don't know if what I have to say can contribute a lot to it, but I guess I want to just share the word. I'm doing everything I can to educate myself. I don't know a lot about American Black history, so I am doing a little research, I'm reading a lot, I'm listening to videos, and it's horrifying. It's terrible what's happening right now, and I can't believe that last week we saw a man's life being taken just like that in plain sight. So I'll leave this intro here. So pinned comment, resources, go and do your bit. So in May was a really weird month for me, I guess. It's still lockdown by the time you're watching this. I spent 2 weeks organising my books, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos. I have spent a lot of time just cleaning up my space, cleaning up my belongings, my possessions, and therefore I didn't really have much time to read. I really didn't feel like just sitting down and reading, so most of the books that I read this month were audiobooks. So I would do something but I would be listening to a book at the same time. My whole reading this month was very unmemorable. I guess besides everything, I'm just going through a moment in time where I don't know what I am reading for. What am I trying to get out of reading? What am I buying books for? What is it that I want to get out of books? Am I reading to explore different genres? Am I reading to expand my knowledge in my favorite genre? I don't even know what my favorite genre is anymore. I thought it was fantasy. I think it's turning into sci-fi. It's all confusing. It's a mess. So these are 8 books that I read this month. I have some of these books as physical books, but a picture will do. So I started my month off with On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. They are a Vietnamese background, I think American poet. They are a really powerful voice in modern POC writing, and this is their first novel. I've never read Ocean's poetry before, but this was a really popular book when it first came out, and I was interested. It all talks about how it is a fictional story, but it has, I guess, beats from their personal lives, so I think there is a really interesting interview with them, so I'll maybe leave it below if I remember. So the story is following this young Vietnamese boy who lives in, I think he lives in America, possibly, and he's writing letters to his mum, who never learned English really, so she would never really understand these letters, but he's writing as if she would one day read them. It's really like a personal story. It's very beautifully written. I think one of the most beautiful first pages is in this book. You read it and it feels like honey like golden honey poured on your skin. It's not burning, but it's just it glistening, like you feel it. It's so smooth and beautiful. So that's what their words are. But the story is a really dark, powerful, just really heartbreaking story about people of color and people of different sexual orientations trying to live their life. I listened to this as an audiobook. It was narrated by Ocean Wong. I found the voice a bit difficult to read, to listen to at times, and maybe on this particular occasion it didn't come across as maybe the author intended. I didn't particularly enjoy the reading experience. It had a couple of really beautiful beats and moments where the words really just hit you hard, but with their beauty rather than the topic. But it was a really hard book to read. I ended up giving it 2 stars, unfortunately, so I would still recommend reading it. I think it's a very important book to read, to see that kind of a different perspective. Then I picked up on audiobook as well. I was going to buy this book without any premonition, knowing anything about this book. It's called Sword of Fire by Catherine Kerr. It's a fantasy book. It's set in the same world as her other series, which is like 6 books, I don't know, very long book series, and I obviously didn't know, so I just picked this up. But it's set in the same world, but like hundreds or 1,000 years in the future. Maybe because I didn't have the background for the story, I really didn't connect with it. It's 500 pages of nothing happening. It's very slow, it's very low fantasy. It had a mention of dragons like a couple of times, and they really didn't have really magical powers or anything. It's very based on, I think, Celtic mythology, and it was really interestingly written, and it wasn't a bad book. I just really didn't like it. It was long and boring and nothing much happened. Our main characters just kind of went from place to place. I don't even remember character names. It's not a series that I'll be picking up again, and it just happened. It's one of those books that I read and it just kind of filled the space. And our 2 main characters, Alyssa and Davina, are quite interchangeable. The voices sounded the same in the sense, not in a narrator sense, but in the writing sense. They felt like the same person, and I got really confused at times who was who. I ended up giving it 2 stars as well. And then I picked up an audiobook for Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Finally picked this book up. It's a fun book. Everyone who has read it has either loved it or hated it, and it's basically, if you enjoyed watching A Star is Born and the Bohemian Rhapsody, the movies, this is basically it in like a film, or in a book form, sorry. It just literally tells the story of this band coming together and this girl, Daisy Jones, who was writing songs and just performing them but not really getting far. And then when she crossed with this band, the Six, they started performing together, they came up with this one album. It's a magical read in that sense, that you really see how broken and how unhappy people can be, and how even when you pursue something that you really want and wish and love, it's not usually the best thing, maybe. Daisy is very much a very like 70s, 80s, that kind of style, where you look at her and you're like, oh, I want to be her, but actually she's so broken and so hurt on the inside, and she never really puts it across, but she's an epitome of a girl, like the best girl that could ever exist at that time. Taylor Jenkins Reid has a really interesting way of storytelling. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is a fantastic book as well, highly recommended. And with this book as well, it has lyrics in the back, so the songs are real, and it felt like a real band. I felt like I was just reading a biography, really. And I'm not big on biographies, but I really enjoyed the both movies that I mentioned earlier. A Star is Born is probably one of the most powerful adaptations of that particular story, with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. And Bohemian Rhapsody was just incredible. So if you want that in a book format, I highly recommend the audiobook, because it's full cast and you can really tell, and obviously the characters tell who they are, but you can really pick up on the voices and you're like, okay, this is Daisy. Like, she has this really low voice, well, obviously because of the audiobook, but I guess I guess I wouldn't have imagined her like that, but it's really fun to hear her do that kind of voice. It's a really weird book where it was really human at the core, but then it was enwrapped in this really wild ride of being in a rock band back in 70s or 80s. I would really recommend reading this. This was my highest rated book this month. I gave it 4.5-ish. I really enjoyed it, but I think it just didn't have that oomph extra to be like a 5-star read for me. There's one quote from the book that I really like. Let me just read it out for you. When you really love someone, sometimes the things they need may hurt you, and some people are worth hurting for. I just find this so poignant. It's really, like, it really gets to you, like, yes, I feel it. Who would have thought a book published in the 80s would become basically a fortune teller for 2020? I picked up the book that was probably the highest selling book during this time, maybe at least in March, April. The Eyes of the Darkness by Dean Koontz, written under the pseudonym of Lee Nichols. I can't believe that this is the book that went viral during this time. So obviously I went into thinking that there would be this talk about this particular thing, and I read through the entire book, and in the last 50 pages it is mentioned like 3 times, and that's it. It wasn't a bad book though, which was quite, I guess, surprising for me. It's a story of this woman, Rachel? Is her name Rachel? So we're following this woman who recently divorced from her husband. She has I think he's like a 12-year-old kid, quite a young boy, and she is a huge production designer. Like she creates stage productions for, like, in this particular case she does Las Vegas shows, which she has been striving to do all her life. I think she was a dancer first, and then she climbed up the ladder. A few years back, her kid went on a field trip with his school, and there was an accident that happened in the mountains, so everyone thinks that the kid died. Then we follow on from then on her life trying to pursue her career, but while still mourning her son. She hasn't taken the things out of his room. She still finds it difficult to think that he's dead. I think it happened a year ago. We get a really Stranger Things vibe from it, where she's getting all these messages, or there's something cold happening. The boy's room goes really cold and dark, and everything's moving in it, and she thinks that maybe he's not dead, or if he's dead then maybe he's speaking through like his ghost self, trying to lead her to find her killer or something similar. She puts on this massive show in Las Vegas. She meets this one cool guy. They kind of have a thing going on, and then something happens and we get propelled into the main story. I thought it was interesting and like suspenseful, because I didn't even read the synopsis. I just went blindly into it, and I really didn't know where it was going, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was slow at times, and some of the things came a bit easy to the characters, but I thought it was worth the read. The whole viralness of it was on like page 300 out of 310, so not worth reading for that. But I think the paranormal part of it was so small in it that literally it was a 90% build up and like a 10% payoff, which was quite sad. I wish there was more of that extra story to it. It almost feels like there should be like another book. It must feel like a serialized, even though it's quite a long book, it's like a serialized novel where you like meet this family and then you go on for like a little adventure with them on a couple of books. I gave it a solid 3 stars. It's just down the road, middle, good read. It wasn't poorly written in my opinion. It was quite interesting. The author didn't absolutely hate on women, so that's great. I guess one thing that was a bit like, is that the story happens in 4 days. The whole journey that these two characters go on happens in 4 days over the 1st of January and like 2nd of January. I feel like that's a lot of stuff happening in 4 days. It was a little bit unbelievable, but you know, it was okay. Next up I picked up Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is the first book that she wrote before Normal People, and it's a really divisive book where people who have read this first and then they read Normal People, they either liked one or the other. There's never usually a person who liked both. Obviously there will be, but from what I've heard. People really either love one or hate the other. I think that's how I felt. I quite enjoyed Normal People, how unlikable those characters were, how harsh they were with each other, but at the same time really loving and really caring. But Conversations with Friends, it's all about this girl, I don't even remember any names, sorry. The girl, and then she meets this couple, and then she starts falling for the husband, and he kind of like succumbs to it, so there's like this whole love triangle happening. So she's a poet, and she has a friend who is a lesbian, and she likes the wife out of the couple, and this girl likes the man, but she has done more stuff with the husband than this girl with the wife. It's all very confusing, it's all very selfish and dumb. The main character is just so overwhelmed by this love for this guy. She knows that he's not going to leave his family, so why does she even pursue it? So that was really frustrating. I feel like it lacked what Normal People had. It's this intimacy. This felt really just selfish and all for her own gain. So I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. Oh, the most controversial opinion of this wrap-up. I read Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It was okay. It was fine. It was 3 stars. It was fine. I don't read much romance. I don't think romance... I used to read romance when I was like 15, 18. It was fun. It was different. It was all like, ooh, romance. But now it's not something that I guess crave, because I'm quite happy in my relationship. I'm very happy in my relationship. I don't need that kind of fulfillment from that. So, and nothing to say that this book is some sort of a filler for what you should be feeling. We're following a first son of America, so the son of the president, who is half Mexican, and then we're following Prince Henry, who is a royal from Britain, the UK, and they have like known of each other's existence, I guess, but then when they finally meet up, it turns out that Alex, who is the son of the president, is in love with Henry secretly, and then technically it turns out that Henry is also gay, so they have this like steamy romance in the background, and they try to hide from paparazzi and try to keep it hidden. It had moments where you really felt for the characters because they were just loving each other, and I think it has a really interesting point at the end where Alex's mum tells him that, you know, despite me being a president, I'm still your mum, and if you think that your relationship with Henry is gonna go somewhere, I think you should pursue it, or make that choice, because if you make that choice, you'll have to give up one thing or the other. Like the president's like being in politics or love. It's all like a whirlwind romance that happens over quite a few months, I think. It's almost like it was fine, it was fun at times, but it lacked something for me. I don't know what it was. It had some smutty scenes that I was really uncomfortable listening to. But maybe it wasn't a book for me. I can appreciate what it does. It's a really fun gay romance, but I ended up giving it 3 stars as well. And I read the conclusion, finally, to the Rosie Project series by Graham Simpson. I always struggle with his name. It was called The Rosie Result. So this is the story of our 2 main characters from the first book. In the second book, I didn't tell you what happened, but you don't care. Spoilers, no spoilers. They basically Rosie gets pregnant, so Rosie and Don have to figure out how to make that work. Literally, the entire book was involved around being pregnant. So in the third book, it's 10 years later, and have a young boy, their son, what's his name? So their son Hudson has similar tendencies like Don, so his school wants him to get tested or get some sort of evaluation for whether he has autism. And there's a lot of talk about racism in this book, and it's quite jarring at times because Don being a genetics professor, he kind of sees it in a different way, and his personality doesn't help his situation. So we go through the book just following them as a family, trying to figure out how to help Hudson, how to figure out how to make him happy and fit in and how to help Rosie follow her dreams and do her work and Don do his job. It was probably the best entry in the series. I thought the first one was quite fun, but I think this really held its own and I really enjoyed it. It was a conclusion. I finally waited for the audiobook to come out. I tried to read it physically, but too much work. Yeah, I ended up giving it 3 stars. That series is complete, thank goodness. And then my last read of the month, of like 2 stars. Just the most depressing month, it seems. It was Adults by Emma Jane Unsworth. It was basically a book talking about this one woman who is in her like mid-30s. She is really obsessed with social media and numbers and trying to just keep herself in it, and how she's following someone but they don't follow her back, or they do follow her back, and how she goes about choosing what caption to put on. It just really highlighted the problems of social media in this day and age. Obviously you can use it for good, but you can also very much make it a bad space for yourself and for your needs. And I think people really forget that part of social media is being social, so people try to put people down more often than support and help and bring up. She also, there's a whole storyline about her wanting to have a baby but actually like trying but not actually trying, and she has a boyfriend and he's like not really into it, and her mom comes into the picture, and her mom is like into oracle and reading and spirits, and it was just a sad read. I thought when I first picked up the book, the first page was quite funny. I thought it was just quite, oh, relatable, haha, funny. But then it just got really sad and dark and just really depressing at times. It talks about all those things without really dwelling into too much of it or really explaining how it should be better. So no, I wouldn't recommend it. I ended up giving 2 stars as well. So yay, great reading month for me. It's a weird situation that we're in. Weird times. I know that I'm very guilty of not reading enough books by POC authors, especially Black authors. I want to maybe do a little book recommendation of my favorite books by Black authors that I've read. Just go out and educate yourself and let's try and make this world actually a good place to live, because right now it's a bit of a dumpster fire. I don't know. I don't even know what you say. Your thoughts in the comments. This was a terrible wrap-up. You see, I don't even know how to finish this video because all that I'm saying is not worth anything if I can say it and some people can't. Stay safe, stay healthy, look after your loved ones, look after your friends, look out for each other.